Juan Brown for the Grass Valley Union. On the 3rd of January, it didn't take too long before we had our first off-runway excursion here at Nevada County Airport. That's a Cirrus aircraft, almost brand new, about 150 hours since brand new Cirrus aircraft. That's a 4-seat reciprocal engine-powered low-wing aircraft. Landed long today here at Nevada County Airport. Here's the end of the runway. This aircraft, we're not sure where he is based out of, but he's from out of town. He landed very long right here near the end of the runway. This is the runway 7 end of the runway. He floated nearly 3,000 feet down the runway before touching down here at this end of the runway and immediately locking him up. There's a set of skid marks all the way to the end. Both brakes worked fine right to the end there. Minor damage to the aircraft, no injuries. Nevada County Airport on the 3rd of January. Well, at least you got the sunscreen up to protect the avionics. Beyond this point, the next step, it's a Lulu. So that was a little clip I did for our local newspaper, the Grass Valley Union, but I want to expand on this subject a little bit more for the Blanco Lirio viewers here on YouTube and on Patreon. I don't want to beat up on the Cirrus community or this Cirrus pilot as an individual, but I got to ask the question, who's training these guys? What is the trend in general aviation training that's scaring guys off from slow flight, precision landings, and quite possibly spin training? Now, I know the Cirrus aircraft is not designed for spin training. Basically the spin recovery procedure in the Cirrus is pull to shoot. But nevertheless, in order to do precision landings and landing on the numbers, you need to be proficient at slow flight. You need to be very comfortable at slow flight. And the best way to become comfortable at slow flight is to practice it and challenge yourself regularly. So many pilots, so many private pilots just want to get the rating and then continue flying from point A to point B without continuing to challenge yourself. You've always learning as a pilot. You always need to be challenging yourself. Also, too, is the reluctance to do a go-around, and that's just a common reluctance among all pilots to do the go-around, but to get out there and practice going around regularly, making a commitment point, coming into an unfamiliar airport for the first time. First, ask around and get as much general information as you can from other pilots. I would recommend flying into the airport with a local pilot for the first time before attempting to solo into the airport. Get all the ins and outs of this local airport, and then once you come over the new airport for yourself for the first time, especially a small uncontrolled airport up here in the mountains, go ahead and do a lap overhead the airport, size the place up, give yourself a hard point for a go-around. If I'm not down by this point, and look at a point midway or wherever you choose to do it on the runway and say, if I'm not down by this point, I'm going around. Make that decision ahead of time so that the go-around decision comes to you easier when you actually need to do it. So I want to open this greater discussion up in the comments section below. I specifically want to hear from you, instructors that are out there in the field today. What's going on in the general aviation community, in flight instruction in general, as we work through the ongoing pilot shortage? What's the general consensus with training out there, and what's the consensus on slow flight and precision landing procedures? Though the Cirrus has a parachute and a bit of a spin reputation, it'll recover from a spin, even though the spin recovery procedure is to pull the chute. But Cirrus specifically put engineering effort into building the aircraft and the wings to enhance its low-speed flying characteristics to help pilots avoid getting into a spin in the first place. If you look closely at the leading edge of the wing on a Cirrus, it's got a cuffed leading edge on the outboard, say half of the wing. That cuffed leading edge on the outboard portion of the wing provides additional lift over the ailerons to give you lateral control well into the slow flying regime of the aircraft to help you avoiding a stall and spin in the first place. So there really should be nothing to fear in slow flying a Cirrus. There's a couple of neat aerodynamic features on the Cirrus aircraft to help it with its low speed handling characteristics. Here's the leading edge cuff that I was talking about on the outboard portion of the wing to allow greater lift over the ailerons to give you additional lateral control during slow flight. And of course, like most wings, it's got wash in and wash out twist so that the inboard portion of the wing stalls first, followed by the outboard portion. And here on the inboard portion of the wing is a stall fence to help create a little burble. That burble flies over the stabilizer elevator, giving the pilot the warning or indication, effectively a stick shaker, if you will, that you're approaching a stall. Meanwhile, the outboard portion of the wing is still flying, and you still have lateral control. Now, all this requires a certain amount of coordination with the rudder in slow flying, and this is the same kind of coordination found in virtually any motorsport. If this kind of coordination and pushing your personal boundaries and limits scares you, then maybe you should consider a different hobby than flying. By the way, all this is just water on the top of the wing here. So ongoing issues of training, I think, are going to be an ongoing theme for this channel. We'll have more early next week. Stay tuned. See you here. Luscombe's looking mighty dusty. Still pretty high and hot. Good. Take it around.